First, the taxi upstarts, or start-ups if you're thinking entrepreneurially. As we've seen with internet gambling, internet pornography and the privacy invasion risk of social networking sites like Facebook, state laws and regulations are powerless and it seems irrelevant. The digital revolution has many upsides. It instantaneously connects people all over the world and is transforming politics and commerce. But can it help reform the New South Wales and Australian taxi industry, dominated as it is by players with monopolistic tendencies, according to the ACCC, and maintained, it is alleged, by regulation protective of the big vested interests? Two young tech heads, the taxi upstarts, think it can.
Effectively like a form of electronic hailing. So at the moment you can only see a taxi within your line of sight when you're out in the street, and what this allows you to do is actually see beyond that. So
kitted out in their best suits, Andrew Campbell and Ned Moorfield have put what's called sweat equity into a smartphone app called GoCatch, which uses instantaneous GPS map location as a new way to connect passengers to nearby taxis looking for fares.
So what we've got here is what a driver was seeing. So you can see they're controlling their availability, and Andrew's kind of trying to find me there on the map. So for the passenger, they can see the name of the driver, the network they belong to, what they're rated out of 5 stars by the community of passengers. So it's like an eBay type functionality where the taxi drivers themselves are being rated. So this is a real first for Australia. And at the same time, passengers' reliability gets tracked and displayed to the drivers. Andrew's just putting through the destination here. If he sends that through, and that then arrives through on the driver's screen, they get an alert. They can then tap on Show Me. So if I then go to accept that job, what that will then do is confirm for the passenger that they have a driver approaching. And this is a great thing for passengers. They can actually see their driver approaching in real time. So no need to wait out on the street, in the rain. You can actually walk out into the street as your taxi arrives.
Using the GPS location technology embedded in smartphones, passengers and taxi drivers can download the app for free. Drivers can even call passengers directly to give an ETA. Aggravation is said to be reduced all round. The process eliminates what drivers resentfully call a no-show, and customer satisfaction is said to be enhanced through the certainty of the taxi's arrival. GoCatch is being built on the popularity of smartphones. Australians love these gadgets, this country having the second highest penetration of smartphones in the world behind Singapore. While Campbell and Moorfield have registered their trademark and will apply to patent any intellectual property they develop, they know there are similar apps now operating throughout the world, including some posted by existing taxi networks in Australia. The young entrepreneurs have yet to make 1 cent. Campbell and Moorfield are working out of low-rent desks in this Ultimo warehouse provided by the not-for-profit technology start-up space fishburners.org. Significantly, they're also supported by the state government's Department of Trade and Investment and a $200,000 grant from its Collaborative Solutions program. So far, around 2,000 of Australia's estimated 23,000 accredited taxi drivers, mainly in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and other capitals, have downloaded the GoCatch app. Around 10,000 passengers have downloaded and some are starting to use it. One taxi driver keen to get an alternative to the current aggravation between taxi drivers and their customers is Andrew HORNE.
The attitude of a lot of passengers seems to be, we'll ring a cab because it's busy, and in the meantime, if we can find one, we'll jump in. So assuming a driver takes the job, when they turn up, they're looking for a passenger with a lot of people around. They'll ask, are you John? John will say yes. And it's not John who jumps in the cab. One of the things we find, if we actually call a passenger on a Saturday night, even if we're going to be 15 minutes later than they want, they don't tend to mind if they know we're coming. And this is one way that solves that, because we can call the passenger, hi, yes, I'm in Smith Street. I'll be there in around about 8 or 9 minutes. I'm sorry, I'm a few minutes late. It could have been caused by the last passenger, traffic, whatever, but they know you're coming.
The Taxi Council, peak body of the taxi industry, has now lodged a formal complaint about GoCatch and similar apps to the Minister for Transport, Gladys Berejiklian. These apps are unauthorised and illegal, the Taxi Council says.
Our advice is that we think it is illegal because it's outside the regulations. The regulations cover the way that networks dispatch bookings, and we don't think this complies.
It's not an unauthorised booking service at all. It's simply a really easy way to connect directly with a taxi driver. So it's just like hailing a taxi on the street. At the moment, if you stand on the street and put your hand out to catch a taxi, you can do that, but you can only see the taxis that are in line of sight. With GoCatch, you can see taxis on the map that are around the corner, on the next block, everywhere. So it's a really easy and effective way of catching a taxi in real time.
One major concern is passenger safety. The taxi industry believes phone app customers may be exposing themselves to unscrupulous or unregistered drivers and put themselves at risk of assault and robbery.
Safety and accountability are very important. We've seen, and we can see plenty of examples overseas of the problems that arise, and very serious problems, in areas where they don't have the same level of regulation, where people in the industry aren't held accountable.
That's clearly alarmist. In the current situation, when you catch a taxi on the street, there's no guarantee that the taxi driver is authorised or anything else. You don't know until you get into the taxi and see the driver's ID card on the dashboard that the guy's been authorised. And even then there may still be some doubt. With GoCatch, we're reducing the possibility of anonymity for drivers and passengers, and there's a location-based data record of the driver's handset and the passenger's handset.
Watching this dispute is economist Dr. Peter ABELSON, who has published papers critical of anti-competitive practices in the Australian taxi industry.
That's the sort of core of the regulations, that taxi drivers can't be independent. This new system, of course, allows consumers to directly book with taxis. At the moment, it's working through the hailing system. The idea is if you're hailing a taxi, you can hail a taxi which you can't see, but you can see it on your app, which is 3 streets away. And so it's an improved productivity in the hailing market. But it clearly could be used more extensively as a booking system.
You book a taxi, it doesn't arrive.
While the regulatory question remains up in the air, GoCatch is still far away from a critical mass of users. If they get there, how do the entrepreneurs plan to monetise the app, or in plain language, make any money? Eventually they want to clip the ticket, take a small share of the fare.
The taxi industry is a high volume transaction business, so there's $4.5 billion worth of taxi fares every year. Our business modelling is around a transactional model, not necessarily a paying up front model, so that's where the concept of clipping the ticket comes in. But very importantly, it's important that software like this is free for everyone to use.
If there is litigation to close down taxi apps like GoCatch, Dr. ABELSON says he is ready to give evidence. The taxi industry needs reform to drive competition to benefit Australian consumers, he says.
It's clearly a productivity gain. It's hard to see why you'd outlaw people contracting directly with suppliers in this way.
The industry now waits for a ruling from the Minister for Transport.